Darius Price was 38 years old, and for 5 years he had not slept more than 5 hours a night. He worked 3 jobs: structural engineer by day, rideshare driver by night, construction consultant before the sun came up, all to pay off $350,000 in debt that carried his wife's name. He never complained, never wavered. The morning the final payment cleared, he drove home early to surprise her. Dinner reservation in his pocket. The words, "It's done," ready on his lips. He came through the back door quietly, heard her laughing in the living room, and stopped cold in the hallway. She was on the phone with her best friend, the woman who had been maid of honor at their wedding. And through that wall, Darius heard his name. Then he heard what came after it. His wife called him her ATM, said he tapped out money and went back in the wall, said another man actually saw her. Darius stood there holding the coffee he had just made for her. He set it down. He walked back outside. And somewhere between the hallway and his truck, the most patient man Angela Price had ever underestimated made a decision she never saw coming. Before we jump into the story, comment where in the world you are watching from and subscribe, because tomorrow's story is one you need to hear. The gas station sandwich was turkey on white bread. Darius had eaten the same one 3 times this week. He sat in the driver's seat of his F-150, the engine off, the heater still ticking as it cooled down. Outside, the parking lot of the Quick Mart on Decatur Street was empty, except for a produce truck idling near the air pump. The sky was the color of charcoal. Not dark exactly, but not close to light either. That in-between hour that most people never see. 4:47 a.m. His engineering badge was clipped to the left side of his jacket. A habit. He'd forgotten to take it off again. The badge had a photo on it from 3 years ago, back when he was sleeping full nights and his face showed it. The man in that photo looked younger than 38. He didn't look younger anymore. His freelance consulting laptop sat open on the passenger seat, the screen casting a pale glow across the cracked leather. A spreadsheet. Column after column of figures. Load estimates for a commercial retrofit in Buckhead that he was presenting notes on by 6:00 a.m., so the site foreman could review before the morning crew arrived. He had written the notes between rideshare fares, done it in the parking lot of a Marriott at 2:30 in the morning, while a couple from the airport rolled their luggage inside. He took a bite of the sandwich and chewed slowly. His phone showed 4 completed fares since midnight. Decent, not great. A slow Wednesday night. He'd learned not to chase Wednesdays. The money was in Fridays, Saturdays, and the early airport rush on Sunday mornings. He had mapped it all out the same way he mapped everything, methodically, without sentiment, in service of a number. The number right now was $14,200. That was what remained. $14,200, and the whole thing would be done. 5 years of triple shifts and gas station sandwiches and sleeping 4 hours when he was lucky, and 3 when he wasn't. All of it closing in on a finish line he had drawn himself on a legal pad at their kitchen table on a Sunday night 7 years ago. He remembered that night clearly, the way the overhead light buzzed slightly, and he kept meaning to fix it. The way Angela sat across from him, with her hands folded tight in her lap, like she was waiting for a verdict. He had spent 2 hours that afternoon going through everything: the student loans, the credit cards, the failed boutique she had opened and closed in 14 months, the predatory personal loan she had taken from a private lender when the boutique started bleeding, and the 2 co-signed obligations her mother Phyllis had opened in Angela's name without fully explaining the terms. He had written every figure down, added them up twice. $347,000. He did not flinch. He did not raise his voice. He looked at the number for a long time, and then he looked at his wife, and he said, "We're not starting over. We're starting from here." Angela had cried that night. Not the quiet kind, the full kind, her shoulders shaking, her hands pressed over her mouth like she was trying to hold something in. He had come around to her side of the table and sat beside her and let her lean into him, and he had meant every word he said. Every single one. That was who he was. That was who he had always been. He finished the sandwich, balled up the wrapper, and tossed it in the bag by his feet. He picked up his phone and glanced at his texts. There were 3 from Angela, sent between 11 p.m. and midnight, while he was driving fares across Midtown. We're out of the good coffee filters, the round ones. Also, can you grab dish soap? Under the sink is almost empty. And I need my dry cleaning picked up tomorrow before 6. They close at 6. He scrolled up, out of habit, looking for something else. A question about how the night was going. A check-in. A good night. There wasn't one. There hadn't been one in a while. He told himself it was stress. Angela had a demanding job. Senior marketing manager at a brand consultancy, long hours, difficult clients. He told himself that when 2 people were both busy, the texture of conversation changed. That was normal. That was what happened in real marriages, not the movie kind. She called household finances Darius's department when her girlfriends asked about the mortgage. He'd heard her say it at a dinner party once, light and breezy, like it was a compliment. Oh, that's Darius's department. He handles all of that. He had smiled across the table at her. He was still smiling about it now, in a Quick Mart parking lot at 4:47 in the morning, eating a turkey sandwich alone. He closed the laptop, started the truck, and pulled out of the lot. The bedroom light was on when he turned into the driveway at 5:15. He sat for a moment and looked at the warm glow behind the curtains. She was up early. That happened sometimes. Early calls with clients on the East Coast, or campaign deadlines that pulled her out of bed before sunrise. His phone buzzed. Angela, bring coffee. I have an early call. He looked at the message. Then he looked back up at the light in the window. He smiled, got out of the truck, went inside to make her coffee. Brandon Osei took a long pull from his bottle and set it down on the bar with a soft knock. How close? He asked. 1 payment, Darius said. Clears tomorrow morning. Brandon looked at him for a moment. Really looked at him. The kind of look that old friends allow themselves when they've known each other long enough that pretending isn't required. The bar was a quiet spot on the west side. Friday crowd, but not loud. A game on the TV above the bottles. Neither of them was watching it. Man, Brandon said. 5 years. 5 years, Darius said. How do you feel? Darius thought about that honestly. Tired, he said. Ask me again tomorrow after it clears. Brandon almost smiled. He was a precise man, not cold, but economical. He didn't give out expressions he didn't mean. I'll check in, he said. Get some sleep tonight. Darius finished his beer. They shook hands at the door the way they always did, the grip firm and familiar. And then he drove home. He was up at 6 the next morning without an alarm. He sat on the edge of the bed for a moment, the room still gray with early light, and then he reached for his phone on the nightstand. He opened his banking app. He found the account. He looked at the balance. The payment had cleared. He sat there with the phone in his hand and read the number twice. Then he set the phone down on the bed and pressed both hands flat against his knees and just breathed. It was done. 5 years, 3 jobs, 1,462 mornings. The legal pad with the columns of figures and the total he had stared at until it stopped feeling like a wall and started feeling like a problem he could solve. All of it, compressed now into a single updated balance on a small screen in a quiet bedroom. He didn't shout. He didn't punch the air. He just sat there and let the quiet move through him. After a while, he showered, dressed, and made coffee. Angela was still asleep. He stood in the kitchen and thought about what he wanted to do with this, how he wanted the moment to land. And it came to him simply, the way good ideas usually did. The restaurant on Peachtree where they'd had their first date. He could still picture her across that table, laughing at something he'd said, her earrings catching the candlelight. He'd been nervous that night. She'd made him feel like the most capable man in the room anyway. He wanted to sit across from her at that table tonight and say 2 words. It's done. He pulled out his phone and made the reservation. 7:30. He'd tell her when he got back from his morning consulting call. A short one. A quick site check on the Buckhead project. An hour, maybe less. It took 40 minutes. The foreman didn't need much from him. A quick walk through, a few notes, and he was back in his truck by 10:15, heading home with the whole Saturday still open in front of him. He felt lighter than he had in years. Something in his chest that had been contracted for so long, he'd stopped noticing it had loosened overnight. He pulled into the neighborhood and cut the engine in the driveway. The back door was unlocked. He'd reminded Angela 100 times about that, and he came in quietly, not wanting to startle her if she was still in a slow morning. He set his keys on the hook by the door. That was when he heard her laughing. The bright, easy laugh. The one that lived in the front of her throat. He had always loved that laugh. He was halfway down the hall when he heard his name. He stopped moving. "Darius!" Her voice was light, almost dismissive, like his name was the setup to a punchline. "Girl, he is not going anywhere. That man is allergic to conflict. He just works and sleeps and works some more. He doesn't even question anything." A pause. A laugh from the other end of the line. A voice he recognized, easy and familiar. The voice of a woman who had stood at the front of their wedding and cried happy tears and told a room full of people what a good man Darius Price was. "Tasha. I'm not worried about him." Angela's voice was easy and warm, the way it got when she was comfortable, when she wasn't performing anything for anyone. "He's my ATM, always has been. Taps out the money and goes back in the wall." Tasha laughed again. "No, Corey is different. Corey actually sees me. Darius just funds me." Darius stood in the hallway. He was holding the coffee he had made for her before he left that morning, still in the thermos he had carried in from the truck out of habit. He looked down at it. Then he set it on the hallway table, carefully, without a sound. He turned around, walked back down the hall, and went out the back door the same way he had come in. He sat in his truck. He did not move for 40 minutes. He did not turn the key. He did not look at his phone. He sat completely still, his hands in his lap, and stared at the garage door. Then he picked up his phone and dialed. Brandon answered on the second ring. "I need your eyes on something," Darius said. "Don't ask me questions yet. Just be available." He started the truck. He pulled out of the driveway and drove. Brandon opened the door before Darius could knock a second time. He looked at his face. That was all he needed. He stepped back and let him in without a word. The apartment was clean and quiet, the way Brandon kept everything. Orderly, functional, nothing out of place. He went straight to the kitchen and started the coffee maker. Darius sat down at the small table by the window and set his keys in front of him and looked at them. Brandon put 2 mugs on the table and sat down across from him. "Talk," he said. Darius was quiet for a moment, not because he didn't know what to say, because he was choosing how much of it to say right now, and in what order. "I need you to pull everything," he said finally. "Every account connected to our joint finances, every transfer, every transaction going back to the beginning. I need to know where the money went." Brandon didn't flinch. "How far back?" "All of it." Brandon nodded slowly. "And?" "There's a man named Corey." Darius said the name the way he said everything. Flat, measured, no weight on it that he wasn't prepared to carry. "I don't have a last name yet. He's connected to Angela somehow. I need to know how." Brandon looked at him for another moment. He did not ask what happened. He did not ask how Darius was feeling. He did not say, "Man, I'm sorry," or "Are you sure about this?" or any of the other things that would have required Darius to spend energy he didn't have right now. He just said, "Give me 72 hours. Darius picked up his coffee. Complete silence. Nobody hears a word of this. "You don't have to tell me that," Brandon said. Darius drove home. He made dinner that night. Chicken, rice, the simple kind Angela liked. She came into the kitchen while he was cooking and poured herself a glass of wine and leaned against the counter and told him about a meeting at work, something about a campaign rollout, and a client who kept changing his mind. Darius listened. He asked one follow-up question. He plated the food and set it on the table and sat across from her and ate. She did not ask about the reservation he had made that morning. He had canceled it from his truck before pulling out of the driveway. He said nothing about it. She went to bed at 10. He stayed up another hour, then went to bed too. He did this for 3 days. He was very good at it. Brandon called on Tuesday morning. "Come over," he said. "After work." The documents were already spread across the kitchen table when Darius arrived. Brandon had laid them out in sections, printed pages, organized with the particular tidiness of a man who understood that the way you presented information was part of the argument. Bank statements, account history, transfer records, a series of flagged entries in red pen. Darius sat down. He started reading. Brandon stood beside the table with his arms crossed and let him read. It took about 10 minutes. When Darius set the last page down, Brandon spoke. $48,000 of what you paid was not legitimate marital debt, he said. That portion traces back to a personal loan she took against a revolving credit line she opened in her own name. No business purpose, no shared liability. The money went to 3 places. He touched each flagged page as he named them. Travel, gifts, and a security deposit on a second address, an apartment she held for 11 months. 18 months into your marriage. Darius looked at the deposit record. He read the address. He had never been to that street. "There's more," Brandon said. He slid a single page to the top of the pile. "She has a secondary credit account you don't know about. She's had it for about 4 years. I flagged one charge in particular." He pointed. "Restaurant charge, City of Charlotte. Party of 2. Reservation under Angela Price." He paused. "You've never been to Charlotte." Darius looked at the charge, the date, the name of the restaurant. He read it once. Then he looked up. "She didn't just let you pay her debts," Brandon said. His voice was even. Not gentle, just honest. "She created some of them so you would." The kitchen was very quiet. Darius looked back down at the table. He went through the pages one more time, slowly, the way he reviewed a set of structural plans before signing off, looking for anything he might have missed, any load-bearing detail that changed the picture. Nothing changed the picture. He straightened the pages into a neat stack. "I need 2 things," he said. "Full documentation. Every account, every transfer, every transaction. Clean copies, organized, ready to hand to someone who needs to act on it." He looked at Brandon. And complete silence. "Done," Brandon said. "Keep pulling. There's more. I can feel it." Brandon nodded. "I'll find it." Darius parked in the driveway and cut the engine and sat in the dark for a moment. Through the front window, the blue flicker of the television moved against the living room wall. Angela was on the couch. He could see her silhouette. He got out of the truck. He went inside. He said her name. She looked up and smiled and turned back to the screen. He sat beside her for a few minutes, one hand resting on the cushion between them, and watched whatever she was watching without seeing any of it. Then he said he was tired, and he got up, and he went to the guest room. He opened the nightstand drawer and took out a fresh legal pad. He uncapped his pen. He wrote the first name at the top of the page, then the second, then the third. The names on this list were different from any list he had ever written before. The sun had barely cleared the rooftops when Darius parked in front of Tasha Moorfield's house. It was 7:22 in the morning, a Sunday. He sat in the truck for a moment and looked at her front door. A wreath hung on it, fall colors, dried leaves, a small wooden letter M at the center. He had been to this house for cookouts, for holiday dinners, for the kind of gatherings where he stood on the back porch with a plate of food and talked to people he barely knew because Angela wanted to be there, and he wanted to support her. He had never rung this doorbell unannounced. Not once. Not in 15 years. He got out of the truck and walked up the path and rang it. She took about 30 seconds to answer, long enough that he knew she had looked through the peephole first. The door opened, and Tasha stood there in a robe, a coffee mug in her hand, her hair pulled back. She looked at his face the way a person looks when they are trying to figure out how much trouble they are already in. She found her answer quickly. "Darius, you were on that call, Tasha." He said it quietly. No heat in it, just the plain shape of the fact, set down between them like something he had carried a long way and was finally putting on a table. She did not deny it. She looked at him for a long moment. Then she stepped back and held the door open. He came inside. They sat at her kitchen table. She refilled her coffee and offered him a cup. He accepted it. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Tasha set her mug down and looked at her hands. "I've known about Corey for almost 2 years," she said. Darius said nothing. "Angela told me it was just emotional at first, that she needed someone who actually talked to her." Tasha paused. "I told her to end it. I told her more than once." She looked up. "She said you'd never notice because you were too focused on the money." The irony of that settled in the room like smoke. "And you believed her," Darius said. "I told myself it wasn't my place." Tasha's voice was even, but there was something underneath it. Not quite shame, but the close cousin of it. "I told myself marriages are complicated, and Angela would eventually do the right thing, and it wasn't my business to get in the middle of it." She picked up her mug again, set it down without drinking. "I've been telling myself a lot of things for 3 years. The phone call," Darius said. She closed her eyes briefly. She made a joke, and I laughed. She opened them again. "I've been sick about it since. That doesn't fix it." "I know that." Darius nodded once. He did not tell her it was okay. It wasn't, and she knew it, and he respected her enough not to lie about it. Instead, he waited, because he could feel there was more, and he had learned a long time ago that silence was the best tool for bringing the rest of a thing to the surface. Tasha set her hands flat on the table. "There's something else," she said. "Something you need to know." She took a breath. "Angela met Corey at her mother's house, a dinner at Phyllis's, 18 months into your marriage. Phyllis introduced them. She watched his face carefully. She liked him right away, told Angela he was the kind of man she should have married." Darius looked at her steadily. "And Phyllis didn't just leave it there," Tasha continued. "She coached Angela. She told her to keep things normal at home, keep you comfortable, keep you working, until the debt was paid off." Her voice dropped slightly. "She framed the whole payoff as Angela's exit fund, Darius. She told Angela that once the debt was clear, she'd have financial stability, and she could leave on her own terms." The kitchen was very quiet. Darius sat with it. He did not flinch. He did not look away. He simply absorbed it the way he absorbed everything, completely and in silence, turning it over until he understood the full shape of it. Phyllis Wade had sat at his dinner table. She had hugged him at Christmas. She had called him son. And she had built the blueprint for everything that was done to him. He looked at Tasha. "One question," he said. She met his eyes. "Are you willing to tell the truth when it matters?" The question sat there between them. Tasha looked at him for a long moment, long enough that he could see the weight of it moving through her. The friendship of 15 years, the history, the cost of what yes would mean and what it would end. "Yes," she said. It cost her something to say it. It was visible on her face, and Darius saw it, and he respected it. "Go home," he said, standing. "Act normal. I'll be in touch." He was 2 blocks away when he called Brandon. "Add Phyllis Wade to everything you're documenting," he said. Every connection, every timeline, every point where she intersects with the money or the man. A brief pause on the line. "And find me a divorce attorney," Darius said. "Someone precise." Brandon called on Tuesday morning. "Come over," he said. "I have everything." That was all. Darius arrived at Brandon's apartment just after noon. Brandon had pushed the kitchen table against the wall and covered it, every inch of it, with printed documents, bank statements, transaction logs, account summaries, timelines laid out in columns with dates and amounts and notes written in Brandon's small, clean handwriting. It looked like the evidence board from a crime show, except every number on it was real. Every dollar on it had come from Darius's hands. Brandon stood at the side of the table with a pen and a yellow legal pad. He did not offer small talk. He just looked at Darius and said, "Sit down." Darius sat. Brandon started from the beginning. Over 5 years of marriage, Darius had contributed $412,000 in post-tax income to the household and to debt elimination. That number included his engineering salary, his rideshare earnings, and every freelance consulting payment, logged, sourced, and verified. "You took nothing for yourself," Brandon said. "No meaningful investments. Retirement contributions were at the minimum required to get the employer match. That's it. Everything else went toward the joint account or directly to creditors." He set the legal pad down. 5 years, Darius. You built nothing for yourself." Darius looked at the numbers. He did not react. Brandon moved to the second set of documents. "Angela opened a secondary credit account 18 months into your marriage," he said. "You are not on it. You were never on it. You didn't know it existed." He laid a statement in front of Darius. The account had carried, at its peak, just over $31,000 in charges. Darius looked down the column of transactions. His eyes moved slowly and steadily, the way they moved when he was reading structural plans, absorbing load, identifying stress points. There were restaurant charges, cities he did not recognize, a hotel in Charleston, a weekend charge in Atlanta during a stretch when Angela had told him she was visiting a college friend. There were clothing purchases, a spa charge, and near the bottom of the third page, a single-line item from a jewelry retailer, Marcel & Sons men's timepieces, for $640. He had never owned a watch that cost $640. "She serviced this account herself," Brandon said. "Part-time consulting income she never disclosed to you. You believed she was only working her full-time marketing job. She wasn't. She had her own income stream the entire time, separate from everything you were building together." The room was very quiet. Brandon let the silence hold for a moment. Then he said the line he had been working toward, the one that reorganized every year of the last 5 years into a single, clean fact. She had her own money the whole time. She didn't need you to pay the debt. He paused. She just needed you to believe she did. Darius did not move. Brandon moved to the third section. "The account types Angela used to run this," he said, "are not ones a person finds on their own. These aren't standard checking or savings products. These are low-visibility vehicles, flexible withdrawal terms, minimal paper trail, structured to stay quiet under casual review." He tapped the document with one finger. Somebody built this architecture for her. Somebody who knew exactly what they were doing and why. He looked at Darius directly. "Corey Ashford's fingerprints are on every one of these decisions." He didn't look away from what she was doing. "He built the road she walked on." Darius picked up the statement with the watch charge. He looked at it for a moment. Then he set it back down with the rest of the papers. "I need the full package," he said. "Everything. Printed and organized." "Already done," Brandon said. He slid a manila folder across the table, thick, tabbed, ordered by date and category. "Patricia Webb," he said. "She's the one you want. Complex asset cases, forensic documentation, Restitution claims she doesn't miss. Darius drove directly from Brandon's apartment to Patricia Webb's office. Her office was on the 4th floor of a building downtown. Clean lines, no clutter. The kind of space that belonged to someone who did not waste time on anything that didn't matter. Patricia Webb herself was a trim woman in her early 50s, with reading glasses on a chain and the calm, unimpressed expression of someone who had seen every version of this story before. Darius sat across from her desk and walked her through everything. He did not editorialize. He laid the documentation in front of her in the order Brandon had organized it and explained each section plainly. She read carefully. She asked 3 questions: precise, technical, clarifying. She made notes. When she finished, she set her pen down and looked at him over her glasses. "The restitution claim is strong," she said. "The fraudulent debt characterization is documented. The hidden account is documented. The third-party involvement is documented." She paused. "This is well built. Can you file by Thursday?" Darius asked. "Yes. Do it," he said. He drove home that evening and made dinner. Pasta. Simple. He set 2 plates on the table and called for Angela, and she came in from the other room and sat down across from him and talked about her day, while he listened and nodded and passed her the bread. He ate his food slowly. He asked about her week. He cleared the plates when they were done. He gave her nothing. No sign. No distance. No edge. He was simply there, the same as he had always been. Angela stood at the bathroom mirror and smoothed concealer under her eyes with her ring finger, working it in small circles until the skin looked even. Perfect. She tilted her head left, then right. She had always been good at this, at making things look the way they were supposed to look. Darius had already left. She had heard his truck pull out before 6, the same as always. She hadn't gotten up. There was no reason to. She picked up her mascara and thought briefly about the dinner last night, the pasta, his quiet, the way he passed the bread without being asked. She thought about it the way you think about furniture. It was simply there, in the background, doing what it was supposed to do. She finished her makeup and went to make coffee. The morning moved the way her mornings always moved, efficiently, without waste. She answered emails at the kitchen counter while her coffee brewed. She confirmed a meeting for Thursday. She responded to a text from Corey. "Still on for lunch?" She typed back. "Obviously." She smiled at her phone before she set it down. They met at a restaurant near his office. A nice place, the kind with cloth napkins and a host who knew Corey by name. He was already at the table when she arrived, jacket off, sleeves rolled to the elbow, that easy smile he wore like a second skin. She kissed him on the cheek and sat down across from him. For a while they talked the way they always talked. Light, comfortable. A private language built over 3 years of lunches and weekends and stolen stretches of time. He was good company. She had always known that. It was one of the things that made the whole arrangement feel, to her, like something more than arithmetic. Then the food came, and he set his fork down before he picked it up. "Angela," he said, "we need to talk about timing." She reached for her water glass. "We're talking. I mean real timing." He leaned forward slightly. His voice dropped. Intimate, but with an edge to it that was new. "I've been patient. You know I have. But I want us to actually live together. Not in theory. Not in 2 more months. 2 more months." He looked at her directly. "When?" She looked back at him with the expression she had spent years perfecting. Warm, present, slightly vulnerable at the edges. The expression that said, "You matter to me," without promising anything specific. 2 more months, she said. He let out a short breath. Not quite a laugh. "Angela," Corey. Her voice was soft, but settled. "I am not going to blow up my life sloppily. You know that. You've always known that about me. I do things carefully." She reached across the table and touched his hand. Just briefly. Just enough. 2 months. Then we move. I promise. He looked at her hand on his. The edge in his expression softened. "Okay," he said. 2 months. She smiled and picked up her fork. She did not tell him that she had already sat across from her own attorney 12 days ago. She did not tell him about the $3,200 she had moved from the joint savings account over the past 4 months. $800 here, $1 and $200 there, amounts small enough to disappear inside the normal motion of a shared account. She did not tell him any of that. She watched him eat and thought, he really does believe he is the point of all this. It was almost sweet. She was home by 7:30. She changed out of her work clothes and poured a glass of wine and settled onto the couch. Darius came home around 8. Engineering shift, then probably a rideshare block, she didn't keep track anymore, and he moved through the kitchen behind her, quiet and steady as a current beneath still water. She heard the refrigerator open and close. She heard the soft sound of him setting his keys on the counter. "How was your day?" he asked from the kitchen. "Long," she said. "But good." "Good," he said. She turned the volume up slightly on the television. Darius's phone buzzed on his nightstand at 10:14 that night. Brandon. He stepped into the hallway and read the message, found something else. Sending now. The document came through as a PDF. Darius stood in the dark hallway and opened it. It was an insurance policy, supplemental life coverage. Angela Price, policyholder. Purchase date, 18 months ago. Premiums paid from the secondary account, the one he had never known existed. He scrolled to the beneficiary line. Corey James Ashford. He stood very still. He read the line again, not because he hadn't understood it the first time, but because he needed a moment to let the full shape of it settle into place. This was not impulse. This was not emotion. This was a woman who had planned for outcomes the way an engineer plans for failure, quietly, in advance, accounting for every scenario. She was not simply preparing to leave. She was prepared for everything. Darius looked at the document for a long moment. Then he opened his messages and typed 2 words to Brandon. Next phase. He set his phone down. He walked back to the guest room. He closed the door. The kitchen was quiet at 5:43 in the morning. Darius sat at the table with his legal pad, a pen, and a cup of coffee he hadn't touched yet. The steam rose off it in a thin, slow curl. The overhead light was on. Everything else in the house was dark. This was the same table, the same chairs, the same laminate surface where, 5 years ago, he had sat across from Angela with a different legal pad and a different list, her debts organized by interest rate, by lender, by urgency. He remembered the feeling of that night, the weight of the numbers, the certainty that if he built the plan correctly, if he executed it without flinching, everything would hold. He had been right about the plan. He had been wrong about what he was building it for. He looked at his notes now. Not the debt columns. Those were long gone, replaced by something else entirely. Names, dates, document reference numbers, a sequence of events laid out in the same precise, load-bearing logic he used at work every day. Identify the structure. Find the weak points. Apply pressure where it matters. He read through it once. Then he capped the pen, set it down, and picked up his phone. Patricia Webb answered on the second ring. "Mr. Price, Thursday is still the plan," he said. "It is." Her voice was clean and professional. No wasted warmth, no performance. He appreciated that about her. "Everything is prepared. The filing goes through at 9 a.m. You'll have confirmation by noon." "Good," he said. "Thank you." He ended the call. He picked up his coffee and finally drank some. Then he called Tasha. She answered after 3 rings. He could hear the quiet of her house in the background. Early morning quiet, the same as his. "Darius, is there a Sunday dinner at Phyllis's this week?" A pause. Not long. Just enough to tell him she understood exactly what the question meant. "Yes," she said. "Every 3rd Sunday. This is the one. I'm going to be there," he said. I need Angela and Phyllis both in the room. Another pause. Okay, Tasha said. That was all. She asked him nothing else. He had not expected her to. She had made her decision when she opened her front door and stepped aside to let him in. Everything since then had just been Tasha living with that decision, carrying it forward one day at a time. I'll be in touch, he said. I know, she said. He ended the call. The last thing he did that morning was simple. He pulled up the website for Ashford and Merritt Financial Advisory. He found the staff directory. He found Corey Ashford, senior advisor, the headshot confident and square-jawed, the bio listing his credentials with the careful pride of a man who believed his reputation was something he had built, rather than something he was borrowing on borrowed time. Darius did not write down the number. He did not need to. He just needed to confirm it was there. That Corey Ashford was reachable. That when Patricia Webb's filing entered the public record and Brandon's forensic documentation made its way through discovery, the compliance officer at that firm would have no difficulty reaching the man whose professional fingerprints were on every account Angela had used. Darius would not be calling Corey. There was no conversation worth having. No confrontation that would deliver anything he needed. The paperwork would do that work, quietly, precisely, through official channels, the way serious things get done. He closed the website. He got up, rinsed his coffee cup, and went to work. Thursday came and went like any other day on the surface. His phone buzzed at 11:58 with a message from Patricia. Filed. Confirmation attached. He read it in the parking lot of a job site, sitting in his truck, hard hat on the seat beside him. He read it once. He put his phone in his pocket. He went back inside. He made dinner Friday night. Chicken, rice, the simple rotation he had kept for 5 years. Angela ate across from him and talked about a co-worker's bad decision in a meeting, and he listened and nodded and passed her the salt when she reached for it. She noticed nothing. He had not expected her to. She had never looked at him carefully enough to see the difference between presence and performance. Saturday he worked his engineering shift. He skipped the rideshare block for the first time in months. He came home and sat on the back porch in the evening air and simply let the quiet be quiet. That night, before bed, he stopped in the hallway. The wedding photo was on the shelf where it had always been. Angela in the center of the frame, bright and certain, her smile aimed at the camera like it was an audience she had already won. Darius stood half a step behind her, his hand at the small of her back, looking at her instead of the lens. And there, just to Angela's left, was Tasha, smiling, her bouquet held in both hands. Darius looked at the photo for a long moment. Then he reached out and turned it face down on the shelf. Not with anger. Just with the quiet finality of a man putting something away that no longer needed to be displayed. He went to bed. He slept 8 full hours, the first time in 5 years. Sunday morning arrived gray and still. Darius woke without an alarm, dressed calmly, dark slacks, a clean button-down, and went to the kitchen. He made coffee. He drank it standing at the counter. Then he picked up his keys and his envelope and a bottle of sparkling water, and he walked out to his truck. He drove to Phyllis Wade's house. Phyllis Wade's house smelled like pot roast and candle wax. It always did on Sundays. The same curtains, the same runner on the hallway table, the same framed scripture above the coat rack. As for me and my house, Darius had stood under those words a dozen times without thinking much about them. He thought about them now. Angela opened the door. The surprise on her face was real. It moved through her quickly, a flash of something unguarded, there and gone before she could manage it. Her eyes went to the sparkling water in his hand, then to the envelope, then back up to his face. Darius, I didn't know you were... I know you weren't expecting me, he said. He said it simply. No edge. No warmth, either. Just the plain truth of it, offered without apology. She stepped back. He stepped inside. Phyllis was in the kitchen when he came through the hallway. She appeared at the doorway with a dish towel in her hands, and the performance of a pleasant smile already in place. Bright eyes, open posture. The full social presentation of a woman who had never in her life been caught off guard. But her eyes moved to the envelope. Just for a second. Then back up to his face. The smile stayed, but something behind it shifted. "Darius," she said. "What a surprise." "Phyllis." He held up the sparkling water. "I brought this." She took it the way she always took things from him, graciously, as if receiving a small tribute she had quietly expected. Tasha was already at the table. She looked up when he walked in. She did not smile, and she did not look away. She just looked at him, steady, still, the way a person looks when they are doing the hardest part of something and have decided to finish it. He gave her a small nod. She dropped her eyes to her plate. Dinner was pot roast, green beans, and cornbread. Phyllis served. Angela brought out the glasses. Darius sat across from Tasha and passed the butter when it was needed, and asked Phyllis how the church auxiliary was coming along. Phyllis told him about the fundraiser, who had promised what, who had not delivered, the specific failure of a woman named Doris, who had agreed to coordinate the bake table and then done absolutely nothing. Darius listened. He asked a follow-up question. Phyllis answered it with the particular satisfaction of a woman who rarely got to elaborate. Angela watched him from across the table. There was something cautious in her face now, something she was working to keep still. Darius ate his food and said nothing that invited her scrutiny. Tasha did not speak much. When she did, it was brief. A word, a short agreement, a reach for the cornbread. She did not look at Angela directly. Not once. She looked at her plate, and she looked at Darius, and she kept herself very still, the way you do when you are carrying something fragile and you know it. Darius helped clear the plates. He stacked them the way he had always done, scraped and neat, and carried them to the kitchen without being asked. Phyllis watched him do it. That guarded look had not left her face since he walked in. She was reassessing something. He could see her doing it. The calculation happening behind her composed expression, the quiet recognition that the man she had spent years dismissing as furniture had arrived at her table with an envelope and an ease she could not quite read. He came back from the kitchen and sat down. He placed the envelope in front of Angela. "You've been served. As of Thursday." Angela looked at it. She did not move for a moment. Then she picked it up and opened it. The sound of the pages unfolding was the only sound in the room. He watched her read. He watched the moment she understood what she was holding. Not just the divorce filing, but the summary document, the financial claim, the words fraudulently characterized marital debt and undisclosed financial structuring tied to a third party in Patricia Webb's precise, unhurried legal language. Angela's composure fractured, not loudly. It happened in her face first, the careful arrangement of it giving way, something younger and more frightened surfacing beneath. "What is this?" Her voice came out smaller than she intended. "Darius!" "I'm not going to argue," he said. Phyllis set down her glass. "Now wait a minute." Her voice was the voice of a woman who had managed every room she had ever entered. Reasonable, firm, practiced. "Darius, I think you need to slow down. Marriages go through hard seasons. That doesn't mean you throw everything away over—" "Mama?" One word. Tasha said it to a woman who was not her mother, but who had stood in that place long enough for the word to carry full weight. She said it quietly. She did not look at Phyllis when she said it. She looked at the table, but it landed. Phyllis stopped. Her mouth stayed open for a half-second before she closed it. The room went still in the particular way that rooms go still when something that was not supposed to be said has been said clearly and without hesitation. Darius turned back to Angela. "I worked 3 jobs for 5 years," he said. Because I believed in you. I believed you needed me the way I needed you. Angela's eyes were wet. She did not look away. I know now that's not what this was. You needed a mechanism, and I was one. His voice did not rise. It did not shake. I'm not angry at you for being who you are. I'm angry at myself for not seeing it sooner. He pushed back his chair and stood. Angela's hand shot out. Her fingers closed around his forearm. Her grip was tight. Not manipulative, not performed, just desperate. The grip of a person who has watched something fall and reached for it too late. "Can we just talk?" she said. "Please, just—" "We talked every day for 7 years," Darius said. He looked down at her hand on his arm. Then he looked at her face. He held her gaze for one long, quiet moment, long enough that she would know he was not leaving in anger. He was leaving in conclusion. "This is what came of it," he said. He walked to the front door. He opened it. He stepped through it. He did not look back. He drove home. He parked in the driveway. He went inside, walked past the kitchen and the hallway table and the shelf where the wedding photo lay face down, and he went to the guest room closet and pulled out a duffel bag. He packed the way he did everything, methodically. What he needed. Nothing more. Clean clothes, his toiletries, his laptop, his legal pad, his engineering badge. He zipped the bag. He turned off the light. He walked out through the back door. The same door he had walked back out of the morning he heard her voice on the phone. The morning everything changed, and he got in his truck. He drove to a hotel 6 miles away. He checked in at the front desk. The lobby was clean and quiet. The man behind the counter handed him a key card. He rode the elevator up alone. He found his room. He set the bag down. He sat on the edge of the bed in the dark for a moment, not thinking, just being still. Then he turned on the lamp, opened his legal pad, and drew a clean line under the last thing he had written. He was done living in that house. Monday morning came the same way it always did. The engineering office was quiet before 8. Darius liked it that way. He had his coffee, his blueprints, the low hum of the ventilation system overhead. He set his phone face up on the desk out of habit, then turned it face down when he saw the screen. 3 missed calls. Angela. All from the night before. He left them there and got to work. The consequences did not arrive all at once. They arrived the way a structure fails, not in a single dramatic collapse, but in sequence. One load-bearing point giving way, then another, each one making the next one inevitable. Angela's attorney was a woman named Carol Sims, who had a reputation for being reasonable and direct with her clients, even when the news was not reasonable or easy. She called Angela on Tuesday morning. Darius was at his desk reviewing drainage specifications when it happened, though he would not know the details until Patricia Webb relayed them through proper channels days later. Carol told Angela plainly, the forensic documentation attached to the filing was airtight. Every hidden account, every transfer, every structured financial vehicle chosen for its low visibility, documented, dated, and sourced. The restitution claim was not a bluff. It was a credible legal argument backed by 5 years of paper evidence that Brandon Osei had organized with the precision of a man who had spent his entire career doing exactly this. The settlement Angela had anticipated, the one she had quietly planned around, the one that was supposed to set her up cleanly on the other side of this, was not the settlement she was going to get. Angela called Corey that afternoon. She told him things had accelerated. She told him Darius had filed, that it was aggressive, that the documentation was more detailed than she expected. What she did not say, what she could not quite bring herself to say, was that she had told him none of this would happen. She had told him Darius was not that kind of man. She had told him he just works and sleeps. He doesn't question anything. And she had believed it because she had needed to believe it. And Corey had believed it because believing it cost him nothing at the time. The time for that kind of belief was over. She could hear it in the silence on his end of the line before he spoke. The sound of a man doing arithmetic he did not like. "How detailed?" he asked. She told him about the account structures, the low-visibility vehicles, the specific financial instruments. Another silence. "Corey." "I have to go," he said. Corey Ashford called his firm's general counsel that same evening. It did not help him. Brandon's forensic report had been attached to Patricia Webb's discovery filing as a supporting document. Discovery filings were accessible through normal legal channels. Normal legal channels included the compliance officer at a mid-size financial advisory firm, a careful, thorough woman named Renee Park, who read everything that crossed her desk and understood immediately what the structured account documentation meant about one of her senior advisors. The internal review opened within 4 days of the Sunday dinner filing becoming accessible. Corey was placed on administrative leave 11 days later. It was not announced publicly. It did not need to be. In a firm of that size, administrative leave during a compliance review had its own particular gravity. It changed the way people moved around you. Senior clients began requesting reassignment, politely, professionally, with the specific vagueness of people who have already made up their minds. The partners stopped including Corey in business development meetings. His calendar, once full, began to clear in the way that calendars clear when people have quietly decided to make other arrangements. He sat in his home office during the second week of his leave and stared at a contact list he could no longer call. Then he picked up his phone and texted Angela. The message was long. Darius never saw it. It was not his to see. But Patricia Webb would later describe its general character as hostile and self-exculpatory, which was lawyer language for what it actually was: a man looking for somewhere to put what had happened to him and settling on the nearest available target. He blamed her for his exposure. He used words that were not kind. He listed, specifically, the things he had done for her and the things she had cost him. He did not mention the things she had done for him, or the things he had chosen freely, or the morning he told her that what she was doing was not wrong because he had needed her to believe it and needed to believe it himself. The message sat in Angela's inbox. She did not respond. She had nothing to offer him now, and they both knew it. Tasha had her own conversations during those 2 weeks. Private ones. No announcements, no performances. She reached out to Angela's aunts and cousins, the ones who had come to the wedding, who had shaken Darius's hand at the reception, and told him he was a good man, who had meant it. She told them what she knew, when she had known it, what she had said, and what she had not said, and how long she had kept quiet about it. She did not dress it up. She just stated it, plainly, the way a woman does when she has decided that honesty is the only thing left that costs her less than silence. Phyllis found herself, over the course of those 2 weeks, defending a strategy that had failed visibly and publicly to people who had genuinely loved the man it was designed to use. She defended it the way she defended everything, with composure, with framing, with the practiced confidence of someone who had never encountered a consequence she could not manage socially. But the calls slowed, the invitations thinned. Not dramatically. Not in any single confrontation she could have addressed directly. Just quietly, permanently. The natural result of people reassessing who you are when someone they trust has finally told them the truth. 2 weeks after the Sunday dinner, Patricia Webb and Carol Sims began formal settlement negotiations. Angela sat alone in her apartment that evening, the one she had moved into quickly, without planning for it, the lease she had signed in a hurry, and picked up her phone. She scrolled to Tasha's name. She pressed call. It rang 4 times. Voicemail. She did not leave a message. Tasha did not call back. The text came on a Thursday morning. "Can we meet?" "Just us. No attorneys. I just need to talk to you." Darius read it at his engineering desk, coffee going cold beside him. He looked at it for a moment. Then he typed back, "Saturday, 10 a.m. Grounded coffee on Mercer. I'll be there an hour. He set the phone down and went back to his blueprints. She was already there when he arrived. Angela sat at a corner table, both hands wrapped around a mug she wasn't drinking from. She was wearing a gray sweater he recognized, one she used to wear on Sunday mornings, and her eyes were swollen in the particular way that comes not from one night of crying, but from 2 weeks of it. She was not performing anything. There was nothing left in her to perform. Darius ordered a coffee at the counter, carried it to the table, and sat across from her. He looked the same as he always did. That was the thing that got her. Same posture, same quiet. The kind of calm that doesn't come from having nothing to feel. It comes from having already felt it, privately, completely, and moved through to the other side without telling anyone. She had been grieving a man who was still right in front of her. He let the silence sit for a moment, the way he always had. "Okay," he said simply. "I'm here." Angela looked at him across the table. Her mouth opened and then closed again. She had rehearsed this. She had rehearsed it in the car, in the shower, lying awake at 2 in the morning, in the small apartment that didn't feel like anything yet. "Did you ever love me?" she asked. It came out smaller than she intended. Darius didn't hesitate. "More than you can understand," he said. "That's why it took me so long to see clearly." She looked down at her mug. "I mean really love me," she said. "Not just the idea of—" "Angela!" His voice was not sharp. It was patient in the way it always was. "That's what I said." She believed him. That was the part that made it worse. She had expected him to say something that let her off the hook, something that suggested the marriage had never been real, that he had wanted something she could not give, that the failure was shared in equal parts, something she could hold on to. He had not given her that. He had given her the truth instead, which was that the marriage had been real, and the love had been real, and she had used both of them and known exactly what she was doing while she did it. Her eyes filled. "Was there anything I could have done?" she started. "Don't." He said it gently, but it landed. "Don't make this a story where there's something you almost did right. You knew what you were doing. You planned it. You had your mother help you plan it." He paused. "The only difference between then and now is that I know it too." Angela set her mug down. Her hands were shaking slightly. She wanted to argue. She had arguments ready. About the pressure she had been under. About the debt and the fear, and the way Corey had made her feel seen in ways she hadn't known she was missing. She had explanations that weren't exactly lies. But she looked at Darius, at the steadiness in his face, at the man who had made her coffee at 5 in the morning and eaten gas station sandwiches in a dark parking lot and written her name at the top of a legal pad like a promise. And she found that none of the arguments were willing to leave her mouth. He lifted his coffee cup and drank the last of it. Then he set it down on the table with the quiet finality of a period at the end of a sentence. "The ATM is out of service," he said. "Permanently." He stood, buttoned his jacket, and walked to the door. He did not look back. The settlement finalized 3 weeks later. It was not what Angela had planned for. The hidden accounts were part of the legal record now. The restitution claim held. When all of it was calculated, the fraudulent debt characterization, the undisclosed income, the structured financial vehicles Corey had built for her to move through, the number that remained for Angela was significantly smaller than the number she had spent 3 years imagining. She signed the papers on a Wednesday afternoon in Carol Sims's office. Darius signed his the same day, in Patricia Webb's. They did not see each other. Darius kept the hotel room month to month. He didn't need much: a bed, a desk, a window that faced east so the morning light came in clean and early. He ran in the mornings now. That was new. He had never had time for it before. Brandon came by most Tuesday evenings. They would sit at the small table in the hotel room with laptops open and work through the framework of the Real Estate Investment LLC Brandon had been quietly building for the two of them. Entity structure, target markets, acquisition criteria, financing ratios. It was the same kind of work Darius had always done, the same methodical, patient assembling of a plan. But the name at the top of the legal pad was different now. It was just his. 14 months after the Sunday dinner at Phyllis's house, on a cool Tuesday morning in October, Darius Price stood on the sidewalk in front of a mixed-use building 2 hours from where he used to live, holding a set of keys that belonged entirely to him. Brandon stood beside him, hands in his jacket pockets, looking up at the facade. "Solid bones," Brandon said. "That's why I bought it," Darius said. They went inside. Tasha came the following Saturday. She pulled up in her car, stepped out, and stood on the sidewalk with her hands in her coat pockets, looking up at the building the same way Brandon had. 4 stories, brick, corner lot. The kind of structure that had been built to last, and had, despite decades of indifferent ownership, done exactly that. She didn't say anything for a while. Darius stood beside her and let her look. "You built something real," she said finally. He glanced at her. They both knew she was not talking about the building. "Yeah," he said. "I did." What existed between them now was not friendship exactly. It was not warmth in the way that word usually means. It was something quieter and harder won. A phone call every few months, a brief check-in, the particular kind of acknowledgement that passes between two people who have seen each other clearly in a moment that mattered. She had told the truth when it cost her something to tell it. He had not forgotten that. He did not need to name it. It was enough. Angela's apartment was smaller than she had pictured. The lease was hers alone. The debt she was paying now was real. No one else's labor underneath it. No one else working 3 jobs while she managed a hidden life. Just her, the monthly statements, and the arithmetic of starting over. Corey had relocated quietly to another city. He had a smaller client book now, a lower title, a new address that Angela had learned about through someone she barely knew. She had received that information and held it in her mind for a moment, and then set it down. The way you set down something you realize you no longer need to carry. Phyllis called every Sunday. She always had. Fewer other people did. That Tuesday evening, after Brandon had gone, Darius took the stairs to the roof. The city moved below him. Streetlights coming on. The low sound of traffic. The particular hum of a place that did not know or care that anything significant had happened here. He had his hard hat in one hand and a pen in the other, and spread across the folding table he had set up near the roofline were the structural plans for the building's renovation phase, load-bearing assessments, reinforcement schedules, the careful documentation of what was sound and what needed work, and how to make the whole thing hold. He read the plans the way he had always read them, patiently, precisely, looking for the places where the weight was distributed wrong, where the load was falling on something that wasn't built to carry it. He understood that kind of problem better than most. He made a notation in the margin, then another. Below him, the city kept moving. For the first time in years, the structure he was building was entirely his own. He marked the plan. He smiled, and he got to work. I hope you enjoyed that one. Be sure to like the video and subscribe so you don't miss the next story. I've picked out 2 more for you that I think you'll really like.